are going to talk about something that happened for those of you who were with us to hear David Metzler and Matt and Phil, speak about, kind of doing things better or being able to engage better and all of these things. What I had in the can for you is perfect for this. And it really has to do with about how to get more of what it is that you want. And I don't mean like, and you've heard me say this when you've been here before, I don't mean visualize it into place. Like, I want a condo in Maui and then it happens. It's not exactly how it really works. You have to be on the track to make things happen. It doesn't miraculously, just generally speaking, come out of thin air. All right. But when I was putting my notes together, I started to realize that we're talking about what I call neurohacktivism. And so I'm asking you to kind of join in on this journey of becoming a hacker. All right. And hackers are people who tend, that's the language for technology and tech, and that can be hacking is a good or bad thing. It's not always just bad. All right. And hacktivism is the act of doing that, if you will, or being a hacktivist. This is all the same language. And I started to realize a couple of days ago, that's what we're doing. So when we understand what our brain is doing, we're able to utilize tools to get ourselves to different places. And that's basically, in current terms, a hack. So I want to talk a bit about words today, and I want to talk about what you can do to change your life reasonably, manageably, and scientifically. And let's talk about words. So hacking is a great word. So when you think of hacking, what do you think of, just off the top of your head?
Bad actors compromising computers.
Bad, right.
A shortcut. Bad actors, something that you shouldn't be doing because it's a shortcut.
Right, exactly. You have to live it out, right? So think, this is primarily negative, 2 out of 3. I mean, is your name Avil or Avil?
Avil.
Thank you, Avil. So, you said, well, it's a shortcut, right? But even when Pam was saying, look, it's a shortcut, but that's a bad thing, right? This is negative. Well, the truth is we have white hats and black hats in technology. So white hats, they're out there doing like, the good stuff, and the black hats are doing the bad thing. So we take language and over time, we change that language so that it suits our needs, and we reassign definitions to these words, which is really interesting, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. So when I said hacker, I was watching and Lane literally moved forward a little bit, kind of up and forward, okay? And Pam was like, it's bad, shortcuts are bad. Like right away, we have a physical response. Exactly. So I want you to think about this. Let's jump in with a second exercise, okay? I want you to think about more, the word more. Just stop and think about it. Whatever's happening in your head, I want you to start to recognize it. But what I want you to do is think of something you want more of, whatever that is, and keep it to yourself, all right? You feel the feeling that comes along with that? What is that feeling? If you don't mind me asking you, it's not group therapy, but just off the top, a couple of words.
Satisfaction.
Okay, great. Anybody else?
Anxiousness.
Okay. All right. It evokes a specific concept. It evokes something because these words, when you have those definitions, they become iconic to some kind of experience that we've had or that we've experienced secondarily. Somebody else has that thing, whatever it is, that life experience, whatever. We want that. It evokes certain feelings. Okay, it could be good, it could be bad, right? As you've heard in what was just said. All right. So that feeling is your brain doing its job. Literally, again, I keep saying this, your brain moves so fast, almost always. So the minute you say something, right away, you're having a response. The question is, what do we do with that? All right. So I want you to think about whatever that thing is where you want more of that, whether it makes you anxious or satisfied, happy, maybe sad. Okay, that's a thing. All right. I want you to think about that. And I want you to ask yourself, what do you want more? What are you craving? Are you craving that circumstance or are you craving that feeling? So is it the circumstance that you're really craving or is it the emotions that come with it? And I just want you to kind of, you don't have to answer me, but just keep that in your head. So we're being driven towards things. And even though we have a lot of control, we don't have thorough control. Okay, so we're responding all of the time. All right. So I want to take that put that aside for a second. And I want you to think about this: accessibility. That is a big word that has huge implications. All right. The way to introduce something to your life, you want more of something, okay, or you like to have even a new experience that you've not had before, right? You have to be accessible to that. So I'd like to share a little bit of a story that was shared with me. Somebody told me that she was looking to meet somebody. She was growing. She went like 20s, 30s, 40s, been married once, beautiful, fabulous, you know, always achieving, all good things. She could never meet the right person for herself. And she went on a retreat, a singles retreat, and she's sitting in a hot tub, and some guy that she befriended, they like became friendly. That was it, just friends, nothing more, no attraction at this retreat. And he walked up to her like out of the blue. She's sitting there, so she's at this hot tub, and he said, you know, you're not accessible. And he wasn't being mean, but he was just saying, let me tell you, you know, you're talking about trying to meet people, all these things, but you're not accessible. He walks away. This concept has stuck with her for probably a solid 20 years. Okay, and she doesn't understand her. At that time, she couldn't understand why somebody would say that to her when she's always putting herself out there, going out of her way to make things happen. It could be business, it could be personal, but she's always really like amazing going out there, but it never clicks for her, ever. So she always feels, even in business, like she's in a deficit of some sort. The truth is she's got such a rigid framework that it's true. She's not accessible. In order for someone else to be able to connect to you, it's not like you just get to show up and people should start coming to you like moths to a flame. There has to be something to connect to. So if you are shut off, or you're fearful, or you are afraid of being vulnerable, whatever it is, even in business, people can't connect to you. So the very thing that you may be putting yourself out there for, you may not be able to access purely because it can't get to you. Okay, and it's not metaphysics. Very often it's a biological issue. Think about this. You're reading people every time you engage anybody or you encounter anybody, you're reading them. Are they safe? Is this comfortable? Can I make sense of it? Right? That allows you to stand or sit next to somebody if you have a choice on the subway. That lets you sit in a certain chair in a convention. That lets you go down the aisle in a supermarket when you see other people, or you don't. Why? We're reading people all of the time. So being that we're all biological entities, we're reading each other. It's not metaphysical. This is a real read. All right. So, and there's science that backs these things up. So I want you to think about this for a sec. We're reading, but it's what we put out there that somebody else is reading, or circumstances. So let's say you're in business, which here we all are, right? And you are just dying to expand your network, and you just want to really hit it, and you want to maybe turn the corner and take on some like new programs or whatever it is, and you just can't get it to happen. Okay, one of the issues may be that the people that would like to work with you, it's just not happening. Maybe they just don't think that this is the right thing, that there's just something they can't put their finger on it. It could be because you have a system in your head where you're like, I'm out there, but don't get too close. Don't get too close, because I've got to guard my thing. So watch your vulnerability. Don't throw yourself out there. Don't drop everything and just become wholly vulnerable. But you have to think about becoming vulnerable in order to be successful. There's no way to do it. You know, it was great. Matt and Phil have this why not thing, right? And I was watching, I'm like, that's it. Okay. I've been walking around for years asking people, what's the worst thing that could happen? Really the worst thing, like you die, you lose that job, what's the worst thing? Like, boil it down. And they're asking the same question. Why not? Well, why would you do that? Well, why not? But when I got into my doctoral program, they were looking at me, and I don't mean this to be heady, this is just a great story. And they were looking at me in the interview, and they were like, well, you're so accomplished. Why would you want to do this? And like an idiot, the only thing that came out of my mouth was, because I'm not done. And the woman kind of fell back, this true story, fell back into her chair. She was like, I know what you mean. I was accessible. I didn't even realize that that's what was happening, but that's what I'm talking about. It's about being unafraid enough to step into the next adventure. That is a big, big portion of getting that thing that you want more of. It really is, all right? So of course, you know that I am going to tell you that this has a lot to do with the brain. That's your neuro hack thing, okay? I know I'm such a dork. It doesn't work if your brain's not in your head. Nothing matters, all right? So think about this for a sec, all right? There's an attraction that has to do with decision making, organization, control, okay? Most of that, not all of that, thanks, Lane, most of that has to do with the frontal lobe. Okay, so there are 5 lobes in your head. The frontal lobe does an awful lot, all right? And it integrates, it works with other lobes. It's not just on a solo flight, right? But a lot of your emotions and all of these things and decision making and control and organization, all kinds of things, okay? That's happening from the front of your brain or within the front of your brain. So you know when somebody says, oh, that was right on top of my head, or was right in the front of my mind, well, that's literally what that is. So it's very, very literal, all right? You move my little thing here. All right, so what happens with the frontal lobe is it also does this, okay? It helps you to manage your thinking, okay? Has a lot to do with your personality, judgment, your emotions, like I said, muscular control, okay, and movement, your memory storage, all right, self-control, all of those things. So anything that has conscious action attached to it, deliberate action, that's happening up there also. So that thing that's in front of your mind, it could be working against you, but also know that that same organ can work for you. Question is, do you want to make that shift? You have to be desirous of creating the shift in order for this to occur. All right. So it's not, these things don't happen because you don't want them. Okay. I know that there's the thing about never say never, and that is like some kind of a weird thing, and I agree. But for the most part, for the majority of your life, if you don't want it, it's not happening. All right. So there are obstacles, because God forbid I don't give you the up and down side, right? So there are some obstacles to this. All right. Some of the obstacles that exist in getting to where you want to go, okay, regardless again of what that is, because that's just yours. That doesn't belong to anybody. There's zero judgment on this. One of those obstacles are your emotions or your perceptions. All right. So if you're having emotions that kind of just grind against you being accessible, it's going to make it harder for you. But if you recognize that, there's something you could do with that. Okay. If your perception is that something is a bad thing, this is also maybe a red flag. Maybe it's something you have to watch out for. So your frontal lobe is there kind of helping you get through things so that you're okay, right? Like the thing about being, in a store or whatever, reading things. Okay, but these are also obstacles. So it's a little bit of both. And you're the one who has to regulate this in order to make things happen. All right, anxiety, okay, anxiety. What this does to the brain is amazing. What it does is it slows and disengages portions of your brain, which includes part of your frontal lobe, all right? So it's harder to make good decisions when you're anxious because things are literally slowed up. They're like jamming up the works. Same thing with depression, all right? And anxiety is also an incredible bedfellow of indecisiveness. So not only are we slowed down in our thinking and you're trying to just get through like whatever's stuck in your head, but the other thing is that you're like, I can't even make a decision right now. I'm going to go with 100% of us, this little small group. I bet you that everybody's had that experience where you just can't make it through. So your brain is moving at such a speed and trying to like kind of make things make sense that now you can't even make a decision. That's one reason why they say when you have a lot of what I call high frequency issues, things that are very stressful, doesn't have to be anxiety, it can be stress. That's the last time you should make a big decision. Don't ever do that because your head isn't moving the way it needs to move. So give yourself time so that you can process things, all right? Difficulties in making decisions. Hi, welcome back.
So
Difficulty in,
that was good. Can I
there
ask
you
a
are.
question?
Look,
Can I ask a
mobile
question?
game.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Yep. Nope. Maybe. Okay. All right, Lane, we'll wait for you to jump back on. Okay, so difficulty in decision making, right? There are several
Yeah, I'm
factors.
here.
in this.
I'm here. I'm just driving. Sorry about that.
Okay, welcome back.
I'll listen in.
Okay, thank you. Just be careful, please. Be very careful. So lack of confidence, lack of information, the fear of failure. Okay, difficulty in decision making can also be a mental health issue. Okay, which anxiety can be a part of that. All right, but things like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, PTSD, okay, things like that. Your head is just trying to be okay, so it has a harder time in making decisions. Does it mean you can't make it through? You can totally make it through. But if you know that, it makes it easier because you can move things aside, focus in, say, I'm not being emotional right now. This isn't about my emotion. Here's business. It's about the business of my life. It's about the business of this office. I can go get upset later. It's about the business of some of your family. It's about the business of me taking a vacation. You know, so you can move that emotion aside, and don't worry, it'll come back. I promise. But once you get to where you want to go, that emotion will also change, which is great. All right. All of this also impacts your energy. All right. So let's keep that in mind. So it's not just emotional, you know, all brain, it's also physical. All right. So there's the word somatic, which means physical. Okay. There are physical responses that also influence decision making. You can't get to where you want to go if you can't make a decision. It's a fact. So that's why we're heavy right now in the area of decision making in this discussion. All right. So your physical responses also help you to regulate how you act. Okay. So emotions like, I don't know, nausea, disgust, increased heart rate. All right. Things that are related to anxiety, depression, kind of confusion, things like that, fear, joy. Okay. They all have a physical response. You may or may not feel it. Okay, but it's there. You know, your muscles tighten up. Like I said, your heartbeat starts to increase. Your blood sugar drops. Your blood pressure rises. Okay. And in business, and maybe I should do a session on this at some point, you can read people, whether it's at a family dinner or it's at a meeting, you can read what's happening with people just by what they start to do. Okay, so if you're sitting with somebody and you see they're starting to bite their lip a lot, right? All right, they're biting their lip, or they're messing with their fingers or whatever, doing their hair all the time. Okay, something, they're tapping their pen, whatever it is, you know that their anxiety is rising. So if you need them to make a decision, you want to help them move into a place where they can calm down, and you'll see it, and that'll help you to get to where you want to go. So it's not just body language, it's interpreting, say in that case, it's anxiety or fear or whatever it is. All right. This is why people have a fight or flight response. That's a physical response. You want to go and you're going, I'm going to attack this. And then there's somebody who's like, I'm out of here. I just got to go. All right. In that, during fight or flight, your heart is pounding. Your blood is rushing. Okay. It'd be great. That's why, and you've heard me say it before, breathe. It's not like breathe Zen. It's breathe because you need physically to take that breath to help it all slow down. Just a biological hack, if you will. All right. So biases and memories, okay, also come into play. So when you're going to make a decision, let's say you want to do something new, you may have a memory that evokes something that's really not good. But you really, really want to go do that. So how do you do that? You have to take that memory and say, that doesn't apply to this. Yesterday is not today, which means you have to be present. And being present is a whole thing in and of itself, which I'm about to discuss with you. So I want you to think that words kind of equal thoughts, which equal feelings. Very easy to remember. Words, thoughts, feelings. All right. So when we talk about words, okay, and hacks and things. So think, when we talk about hacks, initially it was like, oh, that's bad, or it's a shortcut. Okay. Think about this. So we use this language all over the place now. So hacks are not necessarily a bad thing. There are cooking hacks. There's a how to do your laundry hack. There's an everything hack. It's almost annoying, right? Okay. But that's what we have. So when people say hack, it's not necessarily bad. But when you say hacker, people are like, oh my God. But hacking comes from hackers, hacking, if you will. So you need to know where your brain is going and how it is that you're interpreting what people are talking about. So people who have a cooking hack, I don't know, all right, they use water when scrambling eggs instead of milk because it makes it fluffier. How's that for a tip? All right, the thing is it's not doing any damage, but we need to reframe what it is that we're interpreting to be okay with what's happening, all right? So there are tons and tons of keywords that can remind us how to get to a certain place, okay? Here's the trick. It's about the words you use that make the difference, okay? And again, this isn't like, weird, ethereal, whatever. Just your brain is interpreting things. I think that we've really established that quite well, all right? So I need to speed this up. So gratitude. I know these words are overused, but let's go and hit this hard. Gratitude, privilege, mindfulness. All right, all these words once upon a time may have meant a little something else or been read in a different way, okay? Gratitude, it comes from like the word grateful. That's where it's at, okay? What does this do? Gratitude literally affects your prefrontal cortex, literally, okay? And what happens is it increases your serotonin. It activates your brain cell to stimulate the creation of dopamine. Just being grateful, stopping where you want to just go nuts and go, you know what? That's awful, but I am so glad that I was able to be with you. I hate this funeral, but oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting to see living people or whatever, or even the person who passed away. You know what? I'm able to stop and think about all that good stuff that we did. And I'm going to continue that. Right away, your head starts to flood with really good things. Right away. It's amazing. All right. The other thing that this does, gratitude, it decreases negativity. It decreases stress, because when your head starts to focus on the good, bad starts to take a back seat. Sometimes you have to give it a while, but that really is what happens. It also improves your sleep. So it increases your cognitive vitality. You're on a roll. The more you return to that, the more your brain understands it, the more it becomes what we called a habit. I think last time, let that become the place you go to when you're not feeling great. Okay. Privilege. I want you to think about the recognition of privilege right now. Okay. Because of the timing, I'm just going to blow through. I was going to ask you a question. Privilege, when we hear it very often now, people start freaking out. They're talking about how bad people are. It's so bad. Well, what does privilege even really mean before we start reassigning everything all over the place? It's an honor. It's a special honor. I want you to think about this for a sec, all right? I looked this up over and over and over, just trying to dig to see how far this went. Basically, okay, one site said social privilege is a theory of special advantage which benefits one person, often to the detriment of others. I saw this over and over in 1,000 different ways. You know what I saw less of? Special honor, a grant, a gift. Think about it. You go to a graduation, what do they say? And it is my privilege to honor this whatever person who did whatever. Okay? It is our privilege to introduce David Meltzer to the V50 community. Well, I know that words can be used differently, but think about what it does to you. So if you're mad about negative forms of privilege, then what privilege do you have to go make that change? Even if it's small, the smaller components make up the greater whole. You don't like something? Well, I don't care if it's just you having coffee with a friend and having a conversation. Maybe that's all you need to do, but it is your privilege, it's your honor to have great things happen or make great things happen. It's really nice. We are privileged that we get to do this. 15 years ago, we didn't get to do this. We had to meet in a room. But I've had the privilege of meeting so many of you while I'm sitting very far away from you. And that is an honor. Truly, that is an honor. And thank you. Mindfulness is the other thing. Anything you want to use, you take any word, put the thing ness on the end, okay, and you're good. Mindfulness is using your mind, if you will. It's the state of being aware. That goes back to what I said before, being present. Being present doesn't mean, I'm here, but I'm not listening. It's I'm thoroughly here. I'm thoroughly aware. I can manage other things in my head, but I'm right here. All right. This is what I want you to remember as we start to close. Think about being in a mall. There's a trillion distractions. it can really keep you from getting to wherever you want to go to pick up that one thing. And next thing you know, you've been in 1,000 places. Your head is, not necessarily fixated on what you needed to do. Maybe you even forgot what you needed because you're managing a lot. But in the mall, there's a big directory, that big crazy directory. Okay, 3 floors, elevators, escalators, everything. But it says one thing, and there's a big red X. It says, you are here. Okay, and I use this a lot. In order to be present, you can stop yourself and say, I am here. And all of a sudden, when you say it aloud, your brain goes, that's right. It's such a fast trick. So you can be fast tracked, you can be distracted, whatever. Take a break, take a breath, and stop and go, I am here. Like there's that big red X, and you're in a mall of crazy. And all of a sudden, you'll know exactly where you are. And you'll be able to see exactly what's in front of you. And you'll know exactly what's happening, because that's what that directory does. Okay. I am here, right? The other thing is I would push everybody to think about what V50 has said repeatedly, okay? Where community is everything. You want to get stuff in life, you want to make your life happier, more satisfying. It doesn't have to be, a new car, it could be anything. More of feeling good, then keep in mind there's you and there's all these other people that you affect and that affect you. That biological read. This person makes me feel good, that person not so much. Well, maybe make some decisions so you get on the path to go, but using your brain. This isn't just a feel-good exercise, using your brain, all right? So support, compassion, community, everything has its dysfunction. So things don't always go as you want, things can go awry, but it depends upon how you frame things. And in today's discussion, the words that you choose will cause you to interpret things in a certain way. And when you're interpreting that, you're going to have an emotion. And when you have that emotion, you're going to start behaving a certain way. And my question always is, if you look at that, you start backwards. How are you behaving? Work your way back. Are you in the place that's going to get you to where you want to go? Will it bring you more of what you desire? Really? All right. So that's it. And then it's really just rinse and repeat and do it over and over. Your brain will get it, and that'll become your behavior. All right. So that is it. 1 p.m. So thank you so much again for everybody being here. I do appreciate it a lot.
Thank you. This was really, really
Thank you.
helpful.
Good. I'm glad. That's great. So thank you. Anybody, if you have any questions, or we're good?
Oh, just a comment. When I said shortcut, I meant it in a positive way.
I know.
I've read books like on mind hacking and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm very familiar
That's
with
why
that.
That's why I didn't group you in, because it was Pam who went,
Yeah.
shortcuts are look no good. But yeah, no, I really did appreciate, because you're right. That's why the egg example is good. And now guys, water instead of milk in your eggs. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Allison. Love it.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. And thanks. All right, guys. So be well, and I'll see you next month. Promise.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.